Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosovich, George Stoya here from the SoonerScoop.com studios. Josh McQuistion back in Houston HQ. I do have a weather question for you here in a second. It looks like maybe, just maybe, Tulane's travel could be affected by a hurricane popping up in the Gulf. But
maybe OU will be lucky.
You're our hurricane correspondent, Josh. You're close to the action. You got people down on the coast.
Yeah, getting real familiar. And they had said this was going to be just like a historically bad hurricane season.
I know. It's been pretty lucky so far.
Yeah, already dealt with Beryl. Now we're looking at – I don't even know this one's name. I pay so little attention to the weather. Tiffany has not alerted me to a huge problem, and she is absolutely my weather. I don't know if everybody knows out there, Tiffany is a huge weather person, and actually – her greatest problem, she was blocked from Twitter, and her greatest problem was losing Gary England as a follower. That's how weather nerd she is. But
wait a second. Now, Tiff was blocked. Mm-hmm. She got suspended on Twitter.
She did.
Interesting.
She did.
Welcome to the
party. I don't know for what. Yeah, like again, Tiffany doesn't post anywhere. She just reads and she follows, us and the stuff we do, and a few of her friends and that kind of stuff. So I have no idea what happened. I think she logged out and logged back in, and they thought it was some kind of hacking attempt, and she contacted them. So Tiffany is a Twitter criminal. We can absolutely report that as fact.
Perhaps the happenings in Butler County with the former President Trump, some of the things that she said out there on that was, we'll dive into that probably more. Welcome back to the Recruiting Report. A couple big items to come up before we get into it. Josh, you were out to see a pair of Oklahoma commitment and a target, and Ryder Mix and Jordan Deck. And then, obviously we'll get into all that. Cortland Guillory had a fantastic weekend as well. We'll highlight a bunch of the Oklahoma commits in the 2025 class. First things first, though, Tulane weekend coming up this weekend. Our friends from HomeField are going to be boots on the ground. They're coming to Norman, and a couple pop-up pop-up events that you guys would maybe want to check out. I would highly suggest 4 to 7 at the Standard, just north of Campus Corner on the downtown area, just I believe south of Main Street, or just north of Main Street, Gray Street. I always get Main Street and Gray Street mixed up. I shouldn't. Diners on Main Street, Gray Street's the street, one street north. As far as Friday, 4 to 7 at the Coach's Corner, that is the new restaurant that is being opened over where I think the people in my age demo would say Texadelphia. I know that a lot of people, Toby Keith's had it. And then as of late, Penny Hill, RIP. And then Saturday morning from 10 to 1 over at the Noon, the Boomer Sooner Brunch. You can get all of your HomeField items. Best breakfast in Norman. Yes, at the Noun.
You said the Noon.
The Noon?
Yeah.
The Noon would be interesting. I'm just used to the 11 a.m. kickoffs. Back into the 2:30 kickoff this week. But make sure that you check out HomeField. Obviously, some really good stuff, and they're partners with us throughout the football season here. And I know that there's a couple items that I will be picking out for myself there.
Nice.
And for family members.
Yeah, for family members for sure. I know my girlfriend just bought a bunch of stuff off of HomeField.
Absolutely.
So she loves it.
Very good.
She's got great style.
That's because she dresses you now.
Yes, she does.
That's fair. I like it. All right, Josh, let's get into it. The Oklahoma commitment in Ryder Mix, 2025 tight end commit, obviously went and saw him as well as teammate Jordan Deck on Friday night. They played Garland. Let's start with Ryder Mix. We saw him at camp. He came up to Norman and then obviously I think committed just after that. Just in terms of what you saw with Ryder Mix and the tight end unit, who they are adding next year.
Yeah, sometimes, Eddie, and again, we talk about this all the time. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. The week before, Ryder Mix has had a couple of big catches in the second half, including kind of a game-tying touchdown in a big matchup with Argyle, another kind of power in the area in 5A in Texas. And this night, I saw Ryder get to have a couple of catches, but really what I liked, and the interview is up. You can certainly go watch it. But talking to Ryder after the game, what's it like kind of dealing with that? Because Lone Star's got a multitude of talented guys. They've got a wide receiver committed to Texas Tech. They've obviously got Ryder Mix at tight end. And then they've got Davian Gross, who is a top 30 overall player in the country in that 2026 class that's kind of a running back, wide receiver, does a little bit of everything. And it is very interesting to see them kind of have to balance the ball. And I talked to, head coach Jeff Rayburn afterward, and just everything that those guys talked about was how Ryder is just I just want to play ball. Like, I mean, like that was the thing. He was not at all concerned about the ball coming his way, not coming his way. He did a bunch of zone insert stuff. This is Davian Gross right here that you're watching. Big athletic guy. So there is, I think more than anything, he is the kind of tight end that Oklahoma fans are going to love. There's a lot of Jake Roberts in there, I guess I would say.
Hand up real quick. For the sake of transparency for the program, I'm an idiot. I think I just referred to him as a 2025 tight end, and Josh so nicely didn't call me out on it. 2026, my fault. If he wants to skip a grade, he probably could. We go back to the discussion. I'm sorry.
Josh, I did want to ask you about him. I know that he only caught a couple passes the other night. Is he a guy that they feel comfortable can be a blocker? Because you're seeing Oklahoma now, they're running a lot of 12 personnel where they've got 2 tight ends on the field, running some different counter stuff with them in the run game. I mean, they're asking Jake Roberts and Bauer Sharp more often than not to block instead of be passers in the passing game or catchers in the passing game. We've seen that with them being able to catch the ball, but is Ryder Mix somebody that is comfortable being a blocker too?
Absolutely. And again, you can see it on some of these reels. A lot of the time, I would say they use Ryder Mix in a way very similar to what we used to watch Oklahoma do with Dimitri Flowers. They're going to motion him in. They're going to put him at H-back. They're going to line him, he'll be in the slot as a flex tight end sometimes. He'll sometimes be in line. Like, I mean, there's a lot of different stuff that Lone Star did with him. And I think not just, like I talk a lot about a willing blocker. He's a good blocker. Like, he wants to put people on his back. He had a guy, and I don't even remember if it showed up in that reel that we were just watching, but there was a point when he kind of buckled a guy. Like he turned him and the guy's legs kind of gave out. Ryder Mix didn't hesitate. Like, he put the guy on his back. Like, I mean, he is the kind of guy that OU fans are going to like. And, as we're recording this, I'm kind of going through the Monday Morning Idiot. OU could use some of this blocking now on the outside. There would be some real use for Ryder Mix. But he's absolutely a physical guy. And I just, again, he's probably 6'2.5", 6'3". He's not the big, long, 6'5", 6'6". He's not Caden Helms or somebody like that. But he is absolutely a guy that I think they could, like I said, they could put him at H-back. They can play him in line. He's a good receiver. Like, he had one nice catch where they kind of hit him in the flat and he turns up field. There were absolutely some good moments from him as a receiver as well. So this is a guy that's very complete as a tight end for a high school kid. I mean, we know there's a long way to go, but I don't think there's any role I could see him playing where you say, I don't know that he could do that.
For a junior, too. A high school junior.
Yeah.
I want to be clear on that. Class of 2026.
Yeah.
The son of Austin Mix, former Oklahoma baseball player. His answer to you, talking just about the physicality of the game of football compared to baseball, pretty funny. You can check out the interview that Josh did with Ryder Mix after the game, as Josh said, on Soonerscoop.com's editorial page. His teammate as well, somebody that as of recently you have put in a RPM for, as we're looking at Jordan Deck, the junior teammate classmate of Ryder Mix. Just in terms of, he was a guy that I remember we talked about this past summer when he came up to Norman and visited, was super impressive then, and you can kind of see it as it unfolded Friday night as well.
Yeah, Jordan's another guy that it was pretty clear that Garland was like, we're not going to challenge him much. We're not going to give him a lot to look at. They stayed away from him. As the game went on, I thought Lone Star got more aggressive with him, started bringing him into the box a lot more often, and he had a couple of big hits. And again, I mean, you can see that. Like, that kid, all the offers he's got, he's chasing the ball all over the field, like a real high-energy guy. You can really see, as we're learning what a Brandon Hall player looks like, Jordan Deck has a lot of a Brandon Hall type of player in him. I can see why they're very high on him. And again, really has some violence to his game. There's right here. I mean, he comes, sticks his shoulder in, and he, like I said, he didn't get a lot of opportunities because they didn't challenge him very much, but he's athletic. He's clearly comfortable, both kind of playing in coverage as well as coming up and playing the run. So it was my first chance to really see Jordan Deck. Like you mentioned, he was at camp, but I didn't get to watch him as much as I'd wanted to. I kind of was focused on a few other guys. Yeah. And I can't remember who it was I was watching so closely that day, but he really was outstanding at camp for what I did get to see, and then some of the clips that you had gotten, Eddie. Again, this is a priority guy in my understanding for Oklahoma at safety, and I can see why.
He's a tall guy, Josh. I mean, what do you think?
Listed at 6'3", 180.
Yeah, he looks tall.
Yeah. I would say, and you wonder a little bit because I stood next to both of them right after each other. I didn't really sit there and say, oh, one's taller than the other, but my impression would be Jordan Deck's a little taller than Ryder Mix, if not at the very similar height. I mean, that's they're 6'2", 6'3", like right in that ballpark. But again, very long arm, long legged guy. What I was most impressed with was the physicality. I knew at camp he'd showed off some ability in coverage. He has some feel for that. Really good ball skills. That's kind of one of the things that stood out to me about what I did get to see at camp. But watching him here, there's some edge to his game. He's not a guy that's going to be timid about stepping into the box and adding to those numbers, that kind of thing. He'll play that game.
Josh, you mentioned he's got quite the offer list. Who are some of the other schools that are maybe in the mix for him?
Really, the only school he deliberately mentioned, and for those that don't know, Jordan was at the game this weekend. He went up with Ryder Mix, which, again, funny part of that Ryder Mix interview, guy that grew up, the son of an OU baseball player, has always wanted to play football at Oklahoma, and that game, sadly, was his first game at Oklahoma. He'd never been to a home game at OU. So, yeah, he's going to have to come up for a better moment than what he got to see. But Jordan Deck came with him. I did get to talk with his dad, with Ryder's dad and mom, for quite a while at halftime. I think they're all just over the moon about Brent Venables and the decision. Like they're very happy for Ryder. I think everybody's kind of all in there. No huge surprise in that, I guess. But with Jordan, the only school he really mentioned aside from Oklahoma was Alabama. And is that always telling? No. Do I think it's kind of meaningful that the only visit he knew he was going to take as we were standing there talking on the field after the game was Oklahoma? He's like, I'm going to try to get to Alabama. Just talking to various people kind of around that situation. There's a reason I put in a prediction in. I think Oklahoma's in really, really good shape with Jordan Deck.
Really quick, just a follow-up on Jordan Deck. At 6'3", 180, what kind of weight do you think he can add to that frame? Is it a frame that could carry a little bit more once he gets into a college football strength and conditioning program, all that kind of stuff?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, because you got to remember, like, he's still just we've gone so far past the 2025 class that now as we sit here and look at 2026, these guys are just starting their junior year. I mean, he's probably going to put on 15 pounds before he shows up to a college campus, much less what he'll do when he gets in a weight program, whether it's with Jerry Schmidt or somewhere else. He's a big framed guy. He's not little. Came over to me right at the end of warmups and talked to me. I was like, wow, he kind of came right up face to face with me. I was like, this guy's bigger than I thought he was. And I mean, I would say, I don't think it's going to be hard at all for him to be playing north of 200 pounds. Like, he's a big guy.
It's good news. Obviously, there's a number of these high school guys that we will highlight here on the back end. Cortland Guillory, somebody that we especially want to highlight. But first, we were over at the Walk of Champions, as we are every week. I guess for the first 2 weeks. I don't know about every week. But we were over there. And shout out to our friends with William and Lauren, the official custom clothier of OU football. William and Lauren outfits your favorite OU players in custom suits that boost their confidence off the field to match their confidence on the field. Their perfectly tailored clothing ensures every Sooner stands out in comfort and style at prices that make luxury accessible. Visit William and Lauren in Oklahoma City or online at williamandlauren.com. That is williamandlauren.com. Dress like a champion and make your style as legendary as OU football. Good suit. I think that was one of the ones that he might have debuted as well, or early in the season. Danny Stutzman, Danny Okoye had a nice little getup. I don't know about the short and tied. That might be a European thing. Taylor Tatum looking good in a blue suit as well. So special thank you to William and Lauren. You can check it out at williamandlauren.com here in the BLC in Oklahoma City. As for a number of guys, obviously, Josh, you have put out your future Sooners already for the week, kind of recapping everything that happened in the commitment section on Friday night, and there might have been a couple on Saturday, but good group to choose from. The four that you tweeted out were the four that I had kind of highlighted as far as guys that had really good days. Jonathan Hatton, 17 carries, 230 yards, had a 92-yard touchdown. Emmanuel Choice, wide receiver that we highlighted in last week's recruiting report, had a really good day for Lancaster despite a loss to Aledo. 6 receptions, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. Trent Wilson stuck out to me, 4 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. But then we get to Cortland Guillory, the 2025 Houston Klein Oak cornerback commitment. And, so many times we talk about cornerbacks, it's like, they're not going to see a whole lot of action. Teams tend to go on to the other side of them. About the exact opposite for Cortland Guillory. He was tested, and I don't know how many more times he's going to be tested this year with 4 tackles, 2 interceptions, and a blocked field goal.
Yeah, you've got to think that Cy Falls is like something went wrong here. Like, you knew better. You knew to stay away from that guy. And twice they challenged him down the field. Now here you've just got him knifing through and make a nice play on the blocked field goal. But I mean, guys, you talk about a guy that brings a lot of size to the position. We're talking about Jordan Deck being a big guy. Cortland Guillory is all of 6'2" and 180, 185 pounds. I'm going to see him later in the year, obviously being a local Houston area guy. But this is a guy, I want to say, I'm trying to remember his stat line from the first week, but I know I believe he blocked a field goal and returned it like 70 yards for a touchdown in that game. Had a couple of pass breakups, had a forced fumble maybe. For a corner, he has been as active as it possibly could be in the first couple of weeks.
It seems like he's really physical, Josh. Like, you watch those clips of him coming up, getting off blocks, and making a tackle. I mean, it's one thing to go out and catch some of those interceptions, which looked like a couple poorly thrown balls, which great play. I mean, I don't want to take away from him, but I'm more impressed with his physicality.
Yeah, that is one of those things that is absolutely a hallmark of his game. I mean, you're talking about a guy that wants to. Now, will he probably have to get to the college game and realize, we don't want to throw our shoulder in every time? But, yeah, I mean, he likes to let you know he's there, I guess, for a lack of a better way to say it. So he's very physical, super long. There's a lot to like. And frankly, when Oklahoma initially offered him, it was a lot of people kind of thought, well, I don't know if, OU's pushing for him. We had the whole conversation for a while about Kobe Sellers. But when you look at what OU's running out there on the field with the Des Malones, Gentry Williams, Kanai Walkers, all these big corners, he really fits that well. Like, he is that kind of guy that's going to get his hands in passing lanes, and he's going to be physical. He'll come up and play run. He is very much a fit. And I think a really good sign from Jay Valai in knowing what he's looking for, knowing the kind of guys he wants, and didn't really care what the consensus was on Cortland Guillory, because Cortland Guillory, it was OU, Texas, and then Indiana. He had some kind of lesser, programs that were there, but Oklahoma never doubted. They wanted him. They took him. And again, you look at these first 2 games, I doubt there's many corners in the country that can match what he's done so far.
Closer here to the Sooner State. I think it's going to be a rinse and repeat as far as future Sooners go. But Elijah Thomas, 5 receptions, 126 yards, 2 touchdowns. But it's CJ Nickson, the Oklahoma defensive end commitment that really tore it up on Friday night against Kingfisher. He ends up with 4 tackles for loss. Also had a sack on a night that it sounds like it went pretty well for Weatherford.
Yeah, this is playing an always good program in Kingfisher, and obviously on the road. I mean, obviously the stat line's great, but, we talk about that with evaluations all the time. Stats aren't what you're watching. I'm seeing a guy that's being more aggressive. He's attacking upfield. He's taking on blocks. He's fighting through stuff. And, again, when he arrives at contact, he's willing to mix it up and, shed a block and do some of that stuff, rather than, I thought at times, and I've said it, I've always been pretty honest, that I thought he kind of had a basketball mentality at times. No offense, George, but just a guy that kind of wanted to work around traffic rather than, hey, I'm 6'5", 240, I've got to go head on. And then if I don't make the play, I'm going to make it possible for the second level to get to the ball. So I see a lot of that, and I've got to think that is some of him maturing and understanding, okay, kind of starting to accept football is my future. I've got to embrace that idea. And guys, I mean, probably also talking a lot to Miguel Chavis. If I'm him, Miguel, talk to me for 30 minutes before kickoff, and then I'm going to run through the door out of the locker room, and then I'm just going to go hit the first thing I see. So like that would that would be my mentality if I'm CJ Nickson. But yeah, again, I thought this was, of all the guys, I mean, you mentioned Elijah Thomas. Elijah Thomas is a guy who has to pick, for myself, that has to pick MVP each week. Elijah Thomas is the gift that keeps on giving, because no matter what, I know I can pick Elijah Thomas. He's going to have 100+ yards receiving, a couple touchdowns, probably do something on special teams. Like he is a win every week. But having guys like CJ Nickson starting to emerge, I think that's a great sign for this class. And maybe, for all the people that, talk about team rankings and that kind of stuff, this is the kind of film that you put out and you go to, any of the major networks, and they go back and look and they start evaluating senior tape. These are the kind of reels between he and Guillory, and obviously Trent Wilson, like you mentioned, Eddie, had a really nice day as well. That's how you make a move up. You start showing them things you haven't put on tape before.
Will you be joining the modern day media contingent that heads out to Hawaii this week after beating the number 2 team in the country in Bishop Gorman on Friday night?
Yeah, we're still waiting on the flight vouchers to come in. I'm sure the HQ just hasn't sent them my way yet. But Kahuku is going to play host to Modern Day. That, if somebody's got to do it, Eddie, I guess I will, obviously. Yeah. But I've heard they're not crazy about us mainlanders over there. So I'm a little afraid of the maybe some hostility. I just want to be friends with everybody.
Might need to check in with our buddy Dylan Gabriel. I know they have some important things to do in terms of being able to run the football, and that's the point that we get to. I guess we've got to do it. This is the first time that we've talked to you since the glorious 16-12 victory on Saturday night, Josh. And I mean, I'm sure you listened to the Eskridge Lexus post-game podcast. It would have been brutal to make you join us on that after we started at about 2 a.m. on Saturday night, Sunday morning. I think it was a good conversation. It was a constructive conversation. But the fact of the matter is this is an Oklahoma offense that's not very good right now. Let's just kind of pick your brain on terms of the troubles on offense we'll save. And maybe we should go with the offensive line first. But just overall, this was kind of the first time that we've seen Jackson Arnold really, really struggle on Saturday night.
Yeah, I know some people were like, well, look at Arizona. He had those interceptions. I thought Arizona was a young quarterback just, doing young quarterback stuff. This was more concerning to me, guys. Like I told you guys before we started recording, I'm trying really hard not to be negative. That offense is problematic. Like I don't know how you fix all these problems in 2 weeks' time and 3 weeks' time, when Oklahoma's playing two teams that just went out and absolutely housed top 25 teams, while Oklahoma struggled with Houston at home. Like I I don't know. Like, I think there's real concerns here. And guys, one of the things I kind of made some notes. I always kind of end up shooting from the hip. And as I was kind of watching this a little bit, I started thinking about some things. Probably my biggest takeaway and my biggest concern right now is, did Oklahoma know that it was going to be this big of a problem? And if not, how did they not know? Like, and which one's more damning? The fact that you didn't see this coming, or that you did and are still trying to play this style? Where, again, I was talking about it earlier, guys. I was watching the first drive Houston has, that, after OU goes up 7-0, and I went and literally counted their snap time for each and every play of that drive. They averaged snapping the ball with 7 seconds left on the play clock. Houston had a clear plan. They knew the only way they could win that game was to just absolutely drain the clock. And from the first, their first possession, they executed that game plan and shrunk that game. That's what Oklahoma's going to have to do if this is what they've got offensively. And I can't tell if they thought, well, let's see in these first few weeks if we can kind of get right, if we can kind of sort it out, or if they're just not accepting where they are right now.
I couldn't agree more, Josh. I think that
it's week 2, and it's like, oh my God.
Look, I will say,
I know, I hate it.
It does make it worse, though, that it'd be one thing if you'd already played Tulane and gotten through it, and we'll get to that and everything that's to come with the Green Wave. They played well against Kansas State over the weekend. You've played Temple, who S&P Plus comes out on Monday. Bill Connolly does a fantastic job with that. Temple's the worst G5 school. Houston's the worst P4 school. And these are the offenses that you've seen through the first 8 quarters.
Yeah, I get the whole that they haven't played good teams. I think it's I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the answer is.
George is now the voice of reason after Saturday night and a meltdown on the instant reaction.
Don't check my mentions. It is an absolute disaster. But I think that for me, Josh, I think you're right. If this team is going to have success offensively, I think they have to have some game control. Like they have to be the team that is forcing 3 and outs on defense, which this defense is good. This defense is good enough to do that. Maybe not against every team they face because they're going to face some really, really good offenses, but they can get stops.
I want to see them tested.
You don't. So you're not believing in the defense.
No, I
either?
think it's a good defense, but I don't think that it's an elite level defense to where the play that you're getting offensively. I don't know if they have the defense that you can just say they're going to win you a game.
I think they are.
I agree.
I think they're good enough.
Okay.
How about Auburn? You don't think they can go in and beat Auburn's offense? I mean, there's 4 interceptions and couldn't.
I just don't think that they've been tested very well because I think as many steps as the defensive line has made, can they go do it against better competition? Is Grayson Halton going to show up against better competition? Is Jaden Jackson going to show up against better competition? And I think that Auburn,
I did not anticipate us questioning the defense.
I'm not quite. I think the offense is so bad right now that I just don't know if you can put everything on the defense right now.
No, but I think that you can help them out a lot by holding on to the football. I agree with
your overall point.
Running the football. Like the thing that is so staggering to me, and Jackson did not play well. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that he played good in this football game. He did not. He made a lot of poor decisions, bad reads, all of that. But if you cannot run the football with a young quarterback,
Amen.
You are screwed. And they average 2.5 yards per carry on first down against Houston. That is horrific. And a lot of the times they would run it on first down and then they would just go away from the run. And it's like I feel like they need to figure out the run game and stick with it and also pick one guy. If you keep rotating 3 running backs, how are you ever expected to get any rhythm in a run game? And that's the part for me that I'm like, I get it. Jackson's got to play better and he's got to make some of these throws. But if you can't run the ball, you have no identity as an offense right now. And that's the problem with this group. And you look at receiver, they don't have playmakers there other than a Deion Burks. They've got a bunch of small guys out there that can't get open. They're supposed to be speedsters, but these defenses are playing over the top. They're saying, hey, we're daring you to run the football, and you can't run the football. And so that to me is where it all starts offensively, is they have got to figure out what works in the running game. I think they need to run more counter stuff that would benefit some of the problems they have up front. I think they need to run more stuff to the outside, some gap scheme stuff. I just think that if they can simplify the run game, hold on to the football, and stop doing the tempo and going 3 and out, even if you go 3 and out, but you run some clock, at least you give your defense somewhat of a break. I mean, they were close this last week to just this defense being, and they were worn out. I mean, they were totally worn out by the end of this game.
And again, I do think the defense is obviously very good. I think they're much improved. I just don't know if you can necessarily say especially the shit that you saw on Saturday night, that can't continue, obviously. It just, I don't know. I'm kind of in a wait and see period. I think it's a little bit of PTSD that I don't.
Well, I don't want to say, I don't think they're good enough, to just go and beat a Tennessee, Texas, Ole Miss, or Alabama.
Because they are going to be pushed. Those are better offenses.
But I look at Auburn. They've been. Hugh Freeze basically came out today and said they're considering different options at quarterback.
Thornton was awful on Saturday.
They have not been good offensively. South Carolina, I know they just beat the hell out of Kentucky. I don't know what the hell Kentucky's doing offensively. South Carolina looked better, but I still think that's a game OU should win. Obviously, Maine. And then LSU is such an up and down team, and that game is so late in the season. I look at all those games, even Missouri to an extent. I think you could maybe win that game. They just have got to find stuff that they are successful at. Nothing looks easy for this offense. They need to find something that is easy. Guys aren't open. The running backs aren't either seeing the lane or there is no lane to see. Like, they have got to find some stuff that they can just say, okay, when we need to move the football, even if it's for a few yards, like, this is what we go to.
Josh, you're in the middle of the Monday Morning Idiot. Just in terms of offensive line, I know there's a lot to be desired at that just position unit overall. Does it start at center for you? I mean, there's so many problems, it seems like, in particularly, and I can't believe that we're talking about this, identifying who they need to block. Like, it just, what is there a fix? Is there a quick fix with what's to come on the schedule? It's obviously concerning. Where are you at right now in terms of everything that's happening with Oklahoma offensively up front and the run game that has just been, it's been miserable?
There is a part of me, maybe even a big part of me, that thinks a lot of this could get fixed if you have a healthy and ready to go Branson Hickman or Troy Everett. Like, yeah. I think some of these things, they're missing calls. They're missing stuff. Like you said, Eddie, just blocking assignments. When Oklahoma's running all these motions, obviously there's reactions within that Houston front or Temple, whatever. And I think there's a delay because I've listened to Gabe. He's already talked about it. Like, they have these look-arounds where you can tell they're like, I don't know which linebacker I should be going to. And on some of that inside zone stuff, that's the must. Like, you have to know what you're doing, with the defensive lineman so you can work to that second level and you can chip the guy and do some of that stuff. And when you have, I thought this was a better performance. Like, I definitely did. I thought this was much cleaner. It was kind of one of those deals where last week there were plenty of plays where 2 or 3 guys were busting. This week it felt like it was one guy. Like, oh, this would have worked if this guy doesn't go wrong. And it was never the same guy. It was, kind of all over the map. But I thought you saw moments where you're like, okay, like through the right lens, I could see growth there. Like, I could see it getting better. I thought, that the second touchdown drive that gets capped by the Jake Roberts touchdown, that's the best drive Oklahoma's had all season. They hit a deep ball to Thompson. They had a couple runs up the middle that had some success. Burks got hit on a little quick slant. Like, I mean, there were things where you're like, okay, this is starting to cook a little bit. But that's where you run into what I was talking about earlier with Willie Fritz. He just took the air out of the ball. Oklahoma, even when they could get a rhythm, and even when they weren't killing themselves, Houston would go on these 5-6 minutes that were empty possessions, but they were just sucking the clock out. It would be 15 minutes, between commercials and everything else, where Oklahoma wasn't touching the football. And they just never could get in rhythm. And so, again, there were a lot. I'm with George. I don't think there's any one thing. People trying to say, oh, put in Michael Hawkins. Man, that's not going to fix. Like, this isn't one thing. There are a multitude of problems, which is both scary and, kind of a sign of, I don't know, like you could see it. I think scary makes the most sense. At the same time, if this guy's right on this play and this guy's right on the next play and they can make that all work on the same play, it gets fixed. Like, it can work. There are reasons to think this can get better. But, man, my biggest problem, and again, I want to reiterate, I don't put this all on Jackson Arnold. There's a lot of things. I don't think Oklahoma did a good job getting him in any kind of rhythm. Like, I don't think they were making some good or easy early throws for him to get on time and to be, kind of, okay, here's your read. You're going here. You're going there. I'd love to see some stuff to the running backs out of the backfield. I thought that's been very void in the first 2 games, something for an easy rhythm for a young quarterback. And Willie Fritz, I mean, Cole Kublik talked to him after the first quarter. I know you guys were at the game, probably didn't see it or hear it, but he was they were talking about what's the difference between UNLV last week and this week. And he's like, I felt like we got our quarterback some easy throws. We got him moving around a little bit. We got our run game going just a little bit. If you'll just give Jackson Arnold a little bit of a reason, then he can start having some faith when he's throwing those vertical balls that, guys, we know Jackson Arnold can make those throws.
Yep.
I don't know why they weren't happening, but when he is as uncomfortable as he looked, especially in the second half, I don't know how that's going to go better if you don't build him some confidence.
Here is the first thing I would do if I were Oklahoma offensively. Pick your 5 up front, because they have had now. I put this in our
incredible number.
3 starts for Jackson Arnold. He has had 7 different variations of the offensive line up front, 4 different centers.
And I think that's important.
Yeah, I mean, and look, and it's not just important for Jackson, like who obviously I think is having issues trusting the offensive line, even though I thought they were pretty good in pass protection. But I think in his head, he's like, I got to make a quick decision, and then he panics and doesn't make the right decision. Yes, but for an offensive line's cohesion, like you can't just keep shuffling these guys around. And I know some of it is injury related, but this week, I think you have got to say, these are our 5 and we're rolling with them. And I think part of the issue they're running into right now is they're having to play Jacob Sexton at left guard because Josh Bates isn't able to make the calls up front. Because otherwise, Jacob Sexton would be playing left tackle. We saw that in the first game of the season. They want to play him at left tackle. They don't trust their center to make the calls. And I didn't think Josh Bates played all that bad, but I think the communication up front is very clearly not working. Guys are missing blocks. They're not blocking the right people in run schemes that shouldn't be that difficult to know who you're supposed to block. And so they need to pick their 5 up front and move forward with them. And again, they got to stay healthy. That's part of the issue. But if that's Logan Howland playing left tackle, you're just going to have to live and die with it and move forward with it because this shuffling of the offensive line is helping no one.
I agree. What'd you think of Logan Howland getting in the game on Saturday night, Josh?
I thought he was solid. And again, he excelled where I would expect him to. I thought he was good in pass blocking. At times, again, he's a true freshman getting his first real reps. There were going to be rough spots, and there absolutely were. But I liked what I saw. As a run blocker, he's going to have to get more physical, more violent. That's all. I think that's all accepted. I mean, this is a converted tight end that is still learning the position, still learning the speed, and again, learning the speed of Power 5 football. I mean, it's a different thing than the spring game or playing against Temple or whatever. And we all know, next month it's only going to ratchet up to a very even different degree from now. So again, if that's what you've got to do, to me, I like what George is saying. I don't want any moment that sacrifices Branson Hickman coming back and playing center. I don't want Oklahoma to go out and say, well, we're riding with this, because Branson Hickman, again, taking Troy Everett out of the equation, Branson Hickman is their best center, and he's their best center by a lot. It's not really close. And if you can get him back, and then you can do whatever you want to do at left guard, kick Jacob Sexton out to left tackle, put, Michael Tarquin at the right, all of a sudden you've got a pretty functional offensive line. And if, again, I don't know what Jake Taylor's injury status was. I was actually, as we were going just before we started recording, I kind of saw the play where he clearly got hurt, where he took whatever injury it was there late in that first, like I said, that second touchdown drive for Oklahoma. And he just pulls up. He just dead stops in the middle of a play. I can't do whatever I was doing. So I don't know what he's hurt, but that didn't feel great as far as he'll be back quickly, just the way he responded, because I know Jake's a tough guy.
Yeah, it was one of those things, and we talked about it on the instant reaction. I got some video of it that we put in. I felt bad for him that he was even out there. The way that he was acting physically out there, it's get him off the field. He could get very, very injured in a situation like that. Just in terms of, and this might all go together, but I don't think I realized, coming out of the game Saturday night, Oklahoma's wide receiver unit contributed 10 receptions on the night. Do you guys know, how many players actually caught a pass from the wide receiver position of the 10?
Well, 3 for sure.
There was 2 wide receivers that caught passes.
Deion
Burks had 9 receptions. Zion Raggins had 1.
Brendan Thompson caught a touchdown.
Oh, yeah, that's 3. Bad episode, Ed. Bad episode. 3.
Yeah.
Still, I say that to ask you, Josh, just in terms of wide receiver, how much – I know that everybody's concerned about the offensive line. You can't do anything in an offense if you're not going to get any blocking up front. Pretty disappointing so far in terms of having to catch back up with the injuries to Jaden Gibson, obviously Jalil Farouk. Where's your level of concern right there in terms of the wide receiver unit? Is it a situation that, hey, they're young, maybe they can continue to develop? Or is this a OS moment? The Jaquez Petaway thing completely, we talked about it a little bit on the podcast after the game. The whole wide receiver thing is very, very concerning to me.
Yeah, I don't know what Zion Raggins is doing in practice to keep snaps away from Jaquez Petaway, because I haven't seen it. Every time, like if it's competitive, he's getting pushed around. And that's not on Zion. He's 145, 150 pounds, guys. And sure, he can fly, but if you can't open up the defense to where you can challenge over the top and you can let him run down the field, does that even matter? And then, like, if you're going to run to his side of the field, you're just getting him killed. Like, I don't know how Petaway wouldn't be more able to help you in a bigger variety of ways. I know Raggins has that thing that is truly special, but Petaway's got more than enough speed to separate vertically. So I don't understand that. To me, my concern is basically the level of, like, is equivalent with the timeline for Nick Anderson's return. If Nick Anderson can come back, take some of the pressure off Deion Burke, stop letting them just roll coverage to him every single time. And okay, you want to do that? All right, Nick Anderson's going to be one-on-one with your number 2 corner on the other side. Nick Anderson's going to win that battle most of the time. Again, Tennessee is a great example. For all of Tennessee's strengths, they've got problems in the secondary. If Oklahoma can find a way to get in there and have enough time for Jackson Arnold to throw, there's going to be space. They've got to be able to find it. So, and maybe that's why. Maybe they are just being really, really careful with Nick Anderson because they know in 2 weeks' time, in 3 weeks' time, he's got to be there. That's not even an option. They cannot function offensively to the level they'll need to without him. But if he comes back, I can see things opening up and Deion Burke's finally finding some space to work in because it's there for him. But again, with all the coverage moving toward him, that's why I think Oklahoma's targeted Brennan Thompson so much. And, you know, I don't know that Brennan's fully ready to handle that level of burden, but at the same time, there's been moments he was there and ready to make a play and just the ball didn't get to him.
The receiver thing is just baffling to me because you look out there and if they have 3 wide receivers out there and none of them are taller than 5'9", and Deion Burks I think he weighs 190 pounds. He's bigger, but the other 2 guys are, 150, 160. Like you can have 1 or 2 of those guys out there. You cannot have 3 guys like that. Like in for all those speed those guys have, the way that defenses are attacking them and these physical, stronger, cornerbacks or safeties are bullying them in their route running. Like you've got to have, somebody that can make a physical, catch. And I just don't think they have that guy. That's why Josh is right. They need Nick Anderson to come back. And I would even add they need either an Andrell Anthony, which just total non-appearance on Saturday. So I don't know if you can ever count on him, but I was shocked we didn't see an Ivan Carrion or a Zion Kearney. And I get, Eddie, your point after the game, well, they went 3 and out so many times, it was hard to rotate them. Zion Raggins still got 39 snaps.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that many.
I mean, that's a ton of snaps. Like some of those should have gone to an Ivan Carrion or a Zion Kearney. And I don't know what's going on in practice, so I can't say that, maybe Zion Raggins was just amazing during practice and Kearney and Carrion don't know what to do. But I think at some point you just have got to say, we got to play somebody else out there because as much as I think Raggins could be a nice player someday, he wasn't open the entire night other than the 1 catch he made and then the drop he made on 3rd down. Like he wasn't very open the entire evening.
Sounds great. This really sounds like a really good operation right now. Well, we hope
lifting everybody up. Everybody feels better.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting. Just to kind of close this thing out, it's like everybody looks at the non-converts and you pointed towards September 21st as like, this is the date that you had to be ready. Everything needs to be firing on all cylinders by then. September 14th, everything's moved up a week and you don't really have a whole lot of time as Tulane comes to town.
I think Tulane's a good football team. And everybody's going to talk about, well, they could win because they've got this and this
Which
week.
Is a fact.
I agree, but for me, it's more about Oklahoma. Oklahoma's got to just figure its own stuff out. Like I understand Tulane can come in here and win this football game. Anybody can come in here and beat Oklahoma right now, the way they're playing. But for me, it's like go clean up your S right now. Like I'm not as much concerned about Tulane beating them as much as go out there and get your quarterback some confidence. Get your running backs in a groove. Like stop the rotating stuff. Pick a guy. I don't care which one it is. Pick a guy, let him go for 2, 3, 4 straight series before you rotate him out of there. Like pick somebody, roll with him, protect Jackson Arnold, give him some easy throws, and see if you can't get something going on offense.
It's going to be interesting. Tulane, I don't know if they actually recorded a sack against Kansas State, but they did pressure Avery Johnson, and I spent entire Saturday morning, we were watching that up here at the office. It's just kind of one of those things. Like, Avery Johnson's a little bit in the same situation as Jackson Arnold. He's going to have to step up and make some plays offensively if Oklahoma wants to win on Saturday.
Jackson's got to just let it loose, too.
Yeah.
I think he's thinking too much. I would much rather have the Jackson Arnold in the Alamo Bowl where he's just throwing it all around the field, even if it gets intercepted. Like, at least, just let it fly. Like, I thought his decision-making was better in the Alamo Bowl in terms of he just let it go. And I think that they need to get back to that.
We'll see. It's going to be a big game on Saturday, believe it or not, for OU Tulane, 2:30 kickoff on ESPN. Josh, we appreciate it. Sounds like everything is going quite well, though, in terms of 2025 recruiting, or 2026 recruiting with the Ryder mix, as well as Jordan Deck. And then, obviously, we highlighted a number of 2025 guys. Real quick, before we get out of here, Cortez Mills. He did visit Nebraska. I meant to mention this during the recruiting portion of everything that we discussed today. In terms of concern, it was a visit that, we were a little bit leery on if he was actually going to make it. And then the picture of him comes out on Saturday. He did make it to Lincoln over the weekend.
Yeah, I think there was some real disappointment over that playing out the way it did. When we talked about this last week, there was a clear response from Mills and the people around him. It was kind of like, if Oklahoma doesn't want me to take that trip, I won't take that trip. We all know Oklahoma didn't want him to take that trip. That's been the policy from day one. Nothing has changed. When these guys commit, it's laid out to them. Like, it's all very clear. Don't commit if you're not ready to, because if you start taking visits, we're going to see that as basically an open scholarship. Like, we're not going to you're going to have to come back to us and, kind of operate that way. And again, that's not to say that Oklahoma is ready to stop recruiting him. I don't know that yet. But we've seen it before. I mean, guys, we watched it with Colton Vosick, where Oklahoma just kind of washed their hands of it. And again, they would have been glad to have him. They'd love Cortez Mills. Like, there's no question about it. But if you're going to have this policy and have it mean anything, you've got to kind of stand behind it. And I think people misunderstand it and say, oh, well, that means OU's cutting him off. That's not what it means. It just means they're going to have to look at that as, okay, we've got 4 wide receiver commitments and then Cortez Mills and some other guys that we're still looking at. It's Emmett Jones, guys. If Emmett Jones wants to go find a guy today, he could probably have a commitment within the week. Like, we know that. That's absolutely in the cards. And especially this wide receiver group, they were in on so many early on. Plenty of local guys, Dalen McCutcheon, that ended up committing to Florida State. We know the problems Florida State's having right now. That seems, again, that's just a name. I'm not saying there's been any contact, nothing like that. But the avenues are available here if OU wants to move in a different direction. And again, just based on the way this is played out, I think in the next 48 hours, we'll have some answers on whether Cortez Mills is going to continue to be an OU recruit or a commitment at all.
Definitely interesting, especially if, I think there's going to be a lot of people that watch this out there. And Dylan Raiola played pretty well against Colorado. There's probably a lot to offer in terms of NIL and all that kind of stuff that we know about everybody up in Lincoln. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to keep an eye on it here as we move forward, and maybe even here in the early portions of the week over the next 48 hours, as you said, Josh. We appreciate it. We will check back in with you on Wednesday for the unofficial 40. Hopefully, we might have a little bit more hurricane news that we can talk about as Tulane makes the trip up to Norman this weekend. For Josh, George, I'm Eddie. We'll see you back. I'll do better next time, I promise. Probably not. We'll see you next time here on the Soonerscoop.com YouTube channel.